Let's come back now and talk about South Africa's unemployment rate, which is one of the highest in the world. But luckily for us, the informal sector has the potential to contribute significantly in solving this crisis. While township food outlets, spaza shops and traditional medicine sellers are contributing billions to the economy. And this is according to research published in the book Kasinomic Revolution, that's written by Gigi Alcock. Well, he says the Kasi outlets are even outperforming formal retail chains such as ShopRite. Well, let's chat to him about what he found. Gigi Alcock, good morning.
Hi.
Thanks for your time this morning. So, Kasinomics, I think, first of all, just a very quick description of what we mean when we talk about Kasinomics.
Sure. So I really created the term to describe the informal economy. We have a massive informal economy which is unrecognized, unmeasured, and it's primarily township-based, hence the word Gasi from Egasi. So the Kasinomics is really about that informal sector, whether it's around us or in the township environment.
So what have you found in your research? Firstly, what made you go out and look at this in the first place?
So my business, Minanawi, was involved in marketing in that sector, and so that was really our specialization. And what I found was that very few people knew much about it, so we kind of did our own research into it. And one of the things we found was this huge economy. I mean, if you just look at what I call the Gasi course economy, which is township food, is with 87 billion rand a year with 50,000 outlets. The spaza sector is with 250 billion rand a year with about 100,000 outlets. That's not to count the hair salon industry. The backroom rental in the townships worth about 20 billion rand a year just in backroom rental. So there's many. The muti industry you mentioned is worth about 3 billion rand a year. And this is employing, first of all, it's generating huge amounts of money. We underestimate how much each individual outlet makes. We kind of feel that they're survivalist and subsistence businesses. And yet, some of them can be turning over, a hawker can be turning over or making a profit of 30,000 rand a month, between 5 and 30,000 rand a month. A spaza can be making up to 100,000 rand a day in turnover.
So, I mean, Gigi, I suppose the question at this point would be then, if these businesses, these informal businesses are so successful, there's opportunities to create jobs, why are we still seeing the high unemployment rates? Why are we still seeing the poor remain in poverty when there are opportunities like this?
Well, I think one of the first things is that we don't measure that sector. So when we see a hawker or a spaza shop that's making a lot of money, if they don't have a pay slip, we don't actually measure that. Yeah. So we should actually take our figures of 27 or 28% unemployment and put the word formal before it, because that entire informal sector, those are people generating incomes. We have no measure of it. They don't have pay slips. And one of the important things, we should be investing in that sector, because work we've done and research we've shown has shown with very small inputs into that economy, those outlets can grow, they can employ more people, they can, and they need things like security of tenure, they need financing. Yeah. But if you're an informal outlet in a township, you can't get any form of financing to grow your business. So the starting point is first to recognize it as an economy. We have to recognize an informal job as a job, as much as someone who works as an Uber driver or Airbnb is informally employed, I guess, and yet we recognize that we have to do the same in this sector.
So what is it about this sector that makes it such big competition for the likes of our retailers, like the ShopRites?
So the spaza sector is seriously disrupting the formal sector. The average spaza shop can be 5 to 10% cheaper than, for argument's sake, a ShopRite. They're incredibly flexible. They understand the lifestyles and the needs of people in that space. One of the biggest determinants of where people go shopping today is the cost of transport and the inconvenience of transport. What I call a spazarette, which is halfway between a spaza and a supermarket, is right. A spazarette, okay. Yes, yeah. Is right on the corner. When you buy your 12.5 kgs of flour, you don't want to go far away, take it in a taxi, pay the penalty of a second seat and arrive and then walk home with this. You can walk just down to the local shop. They give you credit without interest on food items. So they've adapted themselves. They're disrupting the sector in the same way as the gig economy is, in the sense that they're completely adapted to their customer. They have low overheads. They solve certain pain points, like there's crime when you go to the mall, taking taxi through the ranks and stuff. Walking down the street in your neighborhood, you don't have the crime. You don't stand in a queue. You don't have transport
But
costs.
Are there issues, Gigi, with regulating this? I mean, when we saw the entire issue, and a lot of them are foreigners, right, who are based in
the spaza sector, it's immigrant. Yes. The other sectors are very much South African sectors.
But how do you regulate that? Because when that came out, we had complaints from people who lived in these areas saying it's expired food, it's for expiry, things like that, that it would make it very difficult to regulate and make it safe, I suppose.
So I think there's no issue with regulation. The first thing, as I said earlier, is we have to recognize them as businesses, and then we have to put regulations that are adapted to that specific sector. As an example, we have a problem with Airbnb in every country in the world, in every city in the world, in terms of developing regulations. Our regulations are based on 1920s cities, and particularly in South Africa, around kind of apartheid policies. How do we develop regulations that are adapted to regulating but also growing this economy? Because we're not going to grow a million jobs in the formal economy. So we need to create regulations by municipalities as well as government that are actually going to stimulate this economy, at the same time as covering off things like hygiene, making sure that people who are employed in that sector are looked after, and so on. But we need a balanced development.
Okay, very interesting and fascinating. Thank you very much for your time, Gigi. That's Casinomics, African informal economies and the people who inhabit them.